Now the purposes, we do know that they did it just for sport and wager. And I know I learned this as an undergraduate, and I can never find the source for it. But there's an account where people were betting on the game, and when the game was over, there was a mad rush where people who had lost were trying to get back to their homes to save their goods, and the people that had won were trying to get to the people's homes to take the goods, because that was all part of the bet. We know it was ritual, a very ceremonial event, and often captives were forced to play and often starved so that they would definitely lose the game and then sacrificed. The Aztec used it as a substitute for armed conflict, and this is where the origins of the flower wars came from, because the uniforms themselves were quite bright and colorful. And then the Maya used it as a reenactment of mythology, and with two of their most important figures, the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque. And the hero twins were sent to Xibalba, or the underworld, for making too much noise while playing the ball game. They had to go through a number of trials that were determined by the 9 Lords of Death, but the twins outwitted them and eventually returned to Middle Earth, but not before one of the twins was sacrificed by decapitation and then reborn. And all of this took place on a ball court in the underworld also. So we can see that the game kind of represents these diametric opposites: life and death, defeat and victory, and so forth. But again, incredibly important all across Mesoamerica. We find ball courts everywhere. Big sites often have multiple ball courts. We find it in art. This is actually a rollout of a Mayan vase. So it was a very, very important game. Now the Mesoamerican writing system, it used to be that the oldest writing showed up with the Olmec, but we have to move that now to a site called San Jose Mogote, which is in the Valley of Oaxaca, to about 2600 BP. And we can see some glyphs here. People believe this represents this particular individual's name. The site at Tres Zapote, we do have a long count date, which we're going to talk about, of September 3 in 32 BC, which would be 2032 BP. So we have 2 basic calendars. One is called the Sacred Almanac, and it's 260 days. It's the approximate length of human gestation, but more likely it's just the result of the base 20 counting system that was being used. It did determine when ceremonial events would take place. Each day was numbered 1 to 13 and had one of 20 names. So the same designation only came up every 260 days, so hence the 260-day year. The other one is called the vague year. It's the 365-day calendar, or the solar year. It has 20-day names and 18 month days. Now, in conjunction with the vague year, there are 5 days that are kind of unaccounted for, and they are considered unlucky. And so people that were born on those days, particularly in the Mayan area, their parents lied about it and gave them different names, because names were often taken from the days people were born. But since they were so unlucky, people didn't want their kids with those particular names. So every day has 4 signs associated with it: 2 from the sacred calendar, 2 from the vague year. And the same designation only comes up once every 52 years, and that 52 years is known as the calendar round. The Maya also used something called the long count, and they could track vast amounts of time with it. And it's a fairly simple system. There's a stylized shell here. See if I can get the curvature to work. And that represented 0. A dot represented 1. And a bar represented 5. And again, they counted in a system of 20. So you could go up from a keen 1 to a UNL to a tune, a katun, and a baktun. So again, in multiples of 20. So we find writing on lots of different things. We find it on stela, which are standing stone, monuments, altars, thrones, tombs, buildings, pottery, jewelry, bones, shells, books. I mean, we find dates and hieroglyphs everywhere. So we do find some variety. Sorry, I should go back here a second. In the actual writing system itself, so the Aztecs is pictographic, but the Mayans is more logosyllabic. Glyph could mean a sound or an entire word. So Western Mexico, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about Western Mexico, but here we're talking about the areas of Colima, Jalisco, and Nayarit. They developed kind of their own cultures apart from what we see in other parts of Mesoamerica. So between 3500 and 2400 BP, there's their own thing going on around here. And one of the things that makes them really distinctive, I mean, they did make their own monumental architecture, but the thing that made them really distinctive were the shaft tombs. And these are elite tombs. We often find different kinds of artifacts there, weapons, tools, ornaments, pottery. We find a lot of hollowed effigies in the shape of warriors. So you've got a warrior here. But we also find a lot of dogs. So there's quite a few of these little dog figurines. And we also find religious leaders. We find models of houses. And we even find models of rituals going on. So some people have interpreted this as kind of a indication that the elite in this Western Mexico area were competing with one another. So again, we're not going to spend too much time on this just for time constraints.